This is first knowledge. Egypt has a rich history and culture, with influences from ancient Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Arab, and Ottoman civilizations. The modern Egyptian people are descended from a mix of these cultures, with the majority being descended from the ancient Egyptians and Arabs who migrated to the region during the Islamic conquests. The official language of Egypt is Arabic, which is spoken by the majority of the population. Egyptian Arabic is a dialect of the language that is distinct from other forms of Arabic, and has its own unique vocabulary and grammar. In addition to Arabic, many Egyptians also speak English, French, and other languages, particularly in urban areas. The first European power to conquer Egypt was France under the leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1798, Napoleon launched a military campaign to Egypt in an effort to disrupt British trade routes to India, and establish a French presence in the Middle East. The French forces were successful in capturing Cairo and Alexandria, and established a government in Egypt that lasted until 1801. However, the French were ultimately defeated by a coalition of British, Ottoman, and other forces in the Battle of the Nile in 1798, and were forced to evacuate Egypt in 1801. The British subsequently took control of Egypt and established a protectorate over the country in 1914, which lasted until the Egyptian Revolution of 1952. When Alexander the Great arrived in Egypt in 332 BC, he was greeted as a liberator by the Egyptians who were then under Persian rule. Alexander was fascinated by Egypt's ancient culture, and he made a pilgrimage to the Oracle of Amun at the Temple of Siwa in the Libyan desert to be confirmed as the son of the god Amun. After his return from Siwa, Alexander founded a new city called Alexandria, a site of the ancient village of Rakotis on the Mediterranean coast. The city quickly became an important center of commerce and culture, and it was known for its famous library, the Library of Alexandria. Alexander also established a new administration for Egypt, which included appointing Greeks and Macedonians as governors and administrators, but he also respected Egyptian customs and religion. He adopted the traditional Egyptian title of pharaoh, and allowed the native Egyptian priests to continue their religious practices. After Alexander's death in 323 BC, his empire was divided among his generals, and Egypt came under the control of Ptolemy, one of Alexander's generals. The Ptolemaic dynasty ruled Egypt for almost 300 years, during which time they continued to build on Alexander's legacy, including expanding the library at Alexandria, sponsoring scientific and cultural achievements, and promoting trade and commerce. The name Egypt actually comes from the ancient Greek word Aegyptos, which was used to refer to the country by the Greeks who visited and later conquered Egypt during the Hellenistic period. The ancient Egyptians called their land Kemet, which means black land in reference to the fertile soil of the Nile Valley. The name Egypt gradually replaced Kemet after the Hellenistic conquest of the country, and it has been used to refer to the country ever since. The ancient Greeks did not have a single name for the continent of Africa as we know it today. The term Africa originally referred to the region around Carthage in what is now Tunisia, which was known as Ofri in the Punic language spoken by the Carthaginians. The Greeks referred to various parts of North Africa by different names. For example, they called the region to the west of Egypt Libya, which included modern-day Libya, Tunisia, and parts of Algeria and Morocco. To the east of Egypt, the Greeks referred to the region as Ethiopia, which included modern-day Sudan and Ethiopia. So Egypt was named by the Greeks that named all the understanding of the land. Yes, that's correct. The Greeks who conquered Egypt during the Hellenistic period are responsible for the name Egypt that we use today, and they contributed significantly to our understanding of the land and its people. The Greeks brought with them new ideas, technology, and cultural practices that influenced the development of Egypt during this period. Under Greek rule, the city of Alexandria became a center of learning and culture, with scholars and philosophers from around the Mediterranean world flocking to the city to study and exchange ideas. The famous Library of Alexandria, which was established during this period, became a symbol of the Hellenistic cultural legacy in Egypt and the wider Mediterranean world. However, it's worth noting that the Greeks were not the only people to have an impact on Egypt's history and culture. Other cultures, such as the Romans, Arabs, and Ottomans, also left their mark on Egypt over the centuries. So who named Africa, Africa? The origins of the name Africa are not entirely clear, and there are several theories about its origins. One theory is that the name comes from the Ofri people, who were a Berber tribe that lived in North Africa in the Roman era. Another theory is that the name comes from the Latin word aprica, which means sunny or exposed, in reference to the hot and dry climate of the African continent. The name Africa was first used by the ancient Romans to refer to the region that we now know as Tunisia, but it gradually came to be used to refer to the entire continent. The name became widely accepted during the medieval period, when European explorers and traders began to travel to Africa and interact with its peoples and cultures. Today, the name Africa is used to refer to the entire continent, which is home to a rich diversity of cultures, languages, and peoples. So Kemet is the real people. Yes, Kemet was the ancient Egyptian name for their own land, and it is the name that the Egyptians used to refer to themselves and their culture. The name Kemet referred to the fertile black soil of the Nile Valley, which was seen as the source of life and prosperity in Egypt. The ancient Egyptians had a rich and complex civilization that developed over thousands of years, with a unique language, writing system, religion, art, and culture. They built monumental architecture, such as the pyramids and temples, and developed sophisticated systems of agriculture, trade, and government. Today, Egypt's population is predominantly Arab, and the Arabic language is the official language of the country. However, the ancient Egyptian culture and legacy continue to influence Egypt and the wider world, and many people around the world are fascinated by the history and culture of this great civilization. So it's not Egypt, it's Kemet who are the builders of pyramids. This is first knowledge.